Welcome to the Puck Bunker. This is episode 26. I am Rocco Zappia, joined, as always, by my co-host and rumored Illuminati henchman, Darren Boyce. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Took a break from my other work to talk about some hockey today.
Oh, well, even the secret rulers of the world need a break for a passion project now and then. We are back with our 2025 draft coverage, and thank you guys for watching our Four Nation stuff. We had fun with that. We were obviously paying a ton of attention to it. So we're going to do get back into some prospect profiles here. We got four guys on the docket, two forwards and two defensemen who all would have appeared in our most recent top 50. So we're going to do Kristian Epperson, Jack Murtagh, Sascha Boumedienne, and Max Psenicka. So those will be our guys today, and dive right into it, boys. You want to start with the forwards, and you can lead off with Murtagh.
Sure. So we'll start here. I got Jack Murtagh. He is an August 2007 birthday. So again, he's a little younger for the class, so that is something to keep an eye on with him. 6'1", about 200 pounds, which to me is somewhat filled out. Currently on a lot of ranking boards, he's seen around early 20s to mid 30s for the most part. On our board, we put him in the 40s, and we'll talk about why later. But as of this year, he plays for the U.S. National Team Development Program. In their USHL games, he's got 14 games played, 11 points, and then overall with the development program, he's got 36 games played, and he has 37 points. So 15 goals, 22 assists, and he is a plus 11, which is kind of noteworthy. But nonetheless, going through the player here, to me, some of the positives or pros of his game. I think he's an above average skater. I don't think he's elite per se, but I think it's average to above average at the NHL level. Does have good stops and starts. He does have kind of that a bit of that ability to be shifty. That does exist there. Uh, the other thing too with his you know ability as a player, I'd say his number one skill is his shot. Has a pretty good one timer. It's definitely a weapon on the power play to try and set it up. I think his wrist shot kind of plays as well. He has some good finishing there. He can finish in close when he's in that area. So he's pretty good there. And in turn, that kind of means his offensive hockey sense is probably better in his defensive zone. Uh, has some ability to get open. Um, you know, can cause issues with his shot. Can um, maybe have defenses key on him to leave other guys open. So that part of his game is good. So if we're talking about maybe some other parts of his game, in terms of his puck skills, I mean, he is a shifty skater. He has some ability to make miss, but I thought his stick was actually somewhat weak. I don't think he was very strong on the puck, and I think it was kind of easy for teams to get the puck off of him. Uh, in terms of passing and playmaking, I thought it was quite good in the offensive zone, maybe slowed down when he's on a power play in that. But when he was on the rush, it was not as good. It was a lot more tunnel vision and really tries to beat guys himself, which are kind of low percentage. He makes a lot of low percentage plays off the rush. So that I wasn't a fan of. And that's kind of continued through about 4 or 5 viewings we've had. That's been pretty consistent. Now, the things that really concern me, though, I think defensively, he is a poor defender. I think he maybe lacks engagement on that end. He's not comfortable. I mean, going backwards per se, if he was in a defensive position that way. When he is in the defensive zone, I think he overcommits a lot or is even slow getting back. Um, I mean, he's late to assignments a lot. I think he gets caught puck watching a lot. And he's just too easy to beat when he's playing in a defensive role. When offensive players come after him, they can really just get around him quite easily. It's not really a challenge for them. And I don't know if that's effort related or just knowledge of that part of the game. That is concerning to me though, and that in turn goes to the compete and effort. I find he's a bit too easy to outmuscle. Again, with the D zone effort, I find it somewhat poor. I think he tries on offense. It's just there's a divide between the ways that he's playing. And that also goes with the physicality. I don't think he really is that engaged physically. Most games I've watched turns away a bit from physicality. Um, there wasn't really any effort to, throw hits or even block shots that way. Wasn't really, putting that effort in. So my issue with him is I still have yet to see maybe the high motor of this player. I think there's some offensive skill here, but I really have concerns um, away from the offense. When he plays defense, don't see, you know, I don't see the effort or the want to really be committed on that end. And in turn, if you're drafting him, I think you're going to need, to put a lot of work in with him on that end of the puck. The other thing too is he isn't the largest of players, and I think he actually plays smaller than his size. So, I mean, he's about 6'1", 200, but he plays more like he's 5'11", 175. So I think to me, again, you could take a shot on him as, he has the ability to shoot. There's an in zone, maybe offensive player here. But you really got to hope some of these other aspects of the game develop. And as I said, too, he's already 200 pounds. I'm not sure how much more room for growth there really is at that size, maybe about 10 pounds. But he is one of the younger players for his draft class. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I see with him. I think he's a little overvalued in the prospect ranks, though I don't see him as a first rounder. I think we talked about in our top 50 episode. Even more recently, watching him again, just these concerns I haven't been alleviated. They've almost become more of a problem. I don't really see much improvement there. I've moved him out of my top 50, actually, watch him here a couple more times. So take that for what you will, but that's kind of the thoughts I have on him right now. And we've seen him live too, and even live, you can see the flashes of the offensive upside, but again, just away from the puck, there's not a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, he does have good offensive potential, and in this draft, that is going to get him picked higher than you maybe would like. I I have a hard time. I have a hard time, even with his flaws. I have a hard time envisioning him dropping outside of the top 50 when it's all said and done. But I do see him maybe falling out of the first round, which is where most people have him. I don't see him as a first rounder as well. But the skill is there. He does have a very good shot. He is a good, like you say, he's a good in zone offensive player. But that's kind of what you're working with at this point, because the game away from the puck is more or less non-existent, really at this point. And I think to say that the effort level's been a little inconsistent would be phrasing it nicely. Um, but at a certain point, and we talked about this on our ranking episode, at a certain point, he just has more skill and ability than players at a certain point. And for me, that's somewhere probably in the mid second, where he just like, okay, well, he's just better than the guys that are left, and you work with the flaws. Because here's the thing, you don't want to just write a kid off because he has poor habits in his draft year, because lots of guys with poor habits in their draft year end up going to be pretty good players. Like, okay, so one guy that I hammered on for his habits in his draft year was Shane Wright, and I really didn't like his game away from the puck and all that sort of thing. But now you look, and guess what? He just has the ability and natural skill level to be an effective player in the NHL. So, and I'm not saying that that's what Mteg is, but at a certain point, you have to remind yourself that, okay, they're 17 and 18-year-old kids, and they're not going to be the same at 23, 24, or even 20, 21 than they are right now. So I agree with you with your analysis of his game, top to bottom, 100%. I have near the exact same scouting report as you do. I just think that, to put him outside the top 50 would be to be ignoring his ability a little bit.
So here's the reason why. His top skills I talk about are his skating and his shot. I don't think they're elite though. And so
No,
when
but
we're talking,
for
so for
NHL
instance,
level, his shot is
how good is his shot though? Because like there's better shooters in this draft than him. Like, yes, it's a decent shot. I just think if he's going to play on a team though, an NHL team, he's going to have to play in a power play role. Like that's where you're going to put him, right? And he's a shooter on the power play. He's not really a decision maker. He's
yeah.
a power play shooter. In my opinion, most NHL teams would have a better option in that spot than him.
Yeah, but maybe not on their second unit.
Possibly, but like that's just kind of the process here. Like we're looking for the elite skills of these guys in the second round. What's the elite skill that's going to have them make the NHL? His top skills is shot. I'm not sure it's elite enough. And I think that's where I'm at. Like I don't think it's the best shot in the draft. I think there's a few guys that have better shots than him. I think there's guys that can,
No, but it's good though.
it's good. Yeah. I agree. It's good.
It's good enough. Like he's just going to score goals at the pro level.
But again, if your flaws in the other part of the game aren't improved, then I'm not sure his shot and his skating are good enough to overcome that. That's
No, but I
kind of
think
where
he could.
I'm at.
No, but I think he could maybe chip in 15 or 20 goals.
If you're chipping in 15 or 20 goals, though, you have to contribute other things.
Well, but yes, but we're talking about a guy at the end of the first round, or for in your case, the end of the second round. There's gonna
Yeah.
like if you're ranking a guy outside the top 50, it's because you don't think he's going to be an NHL player.
I didn't say that.
No, but how many guys from the draft class become 400 game players, right? Because there's lots of guys that get 20, 30 games, and that's fine. But like we're looking for guys that stick in the league,
Yeah.
right? So what is that per draft class? 30, 35 guys, 40 guys?
Okay. I
So if you're
agree. And what do they
okay,
all usually have, though?
an elite skill, that's
Yeah.
okay. But if you're ranking him outside there, it's because in your assessment, he's probably like he's more likely to not become an everyday player than to become an everyday player. So just by ranking him there, like, yeah, he's going to have a lot of holes in his game because you're ranking him in a place that's just what
Well,
guys
the other
in
thing
that
is
area
too,
have.
I just think there's guys. I think there's enough guys in front of him that have a higher end elite skill or something that they have that can have them at least make the NHL and play over 200 games. Like I think that exists with a lot of these guys I put in front of them. One of which will be Kristian Epperson, who I also have ranked ahead of him. And the reason, again, there's far less flaws in his game and far less I like again, and I see his skill level or his elite skills are a higher level than Murtagh's are. And
Okay,
that's
well,
kind of the thought process there.
okay, so let's get into Epperson then. I know, and we can
Yeah.
continue this conversation once we watch the Epperson video here. So he's a 6 foot, 180-pound left winger, currently playing for the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL. In 48 games played, he's got 22 goals and 44 assists for 66 points to go along with a pretty noteworthy 75 penalty minutes. Now, this is a player who was available in the draft last year and did not get picked. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams who wish they maybe had taken a late flyer on him because he's going to go a lot. Well, he's going to go pretty high this year. Gets around the ice pretty well. I think his skating in terms of his top speed is quite good, but maybe not elite. But I do think it projects as at least average in the NHL level and probably above average. His quickness, I do like better than his straight line speed. I find him very, very shifty. He's able to make quick cuts and he's able to use his first couple steps to create space for himself, which is something that he actually does quite effectively. He does know how to use his feet in tight areas just to gain a couple feet, so he can have a little room to make a play. I do like the majority of his offensive tools quite a bit. His shot's above average, but again, not elite. But I do feel like he can contribute some goal scoring at the next level. But that's not his bread and butter. I do think he's much more of a playmaker than a shooter, and I think his playmaking ability is excellent, to be honest. And I think probably, in my opinion, would be the biggest strength of his game is the way that he can pass the puck and he can deliver the puck in different ways. He can put touch on it. He can put zip on it. He can give you an area pass. He can give you a really hard one right on your tape. And that's a combination of physical tools to be able to make the plays, but that's also an indicator to me of hockey IQ and a smart player, because you need to decide in really snap-second judgments what type of pass you're going to deliver. And you'll see a couple examples here where he makes some really nice passes. Sees the O-zone very well, and he's confident in his ability to delay the play in order to open things up for either himself or his teammates. Excellent touch on his area passes, like I mentioned, and he puts his line mates in really good positions to pick them up in stride and give them a chance to make a play. In the offensive zone, he's pretty constantly in motion, doesn't really let himself just stand still or ever get stagnant in the play. And when in doubt, he gets to the net. He's willing to battle for space in front of the net. He stops on the post when he does drive the net. There's a lot to like there in terms of his willingness and ability to get to the middle of the ice. Gives a decent effort in the defensive zone. I mean, he's got some work to do, but he does get back and he has a good stick. He's able to create some turnovers and he'll cover his man at the point. He doesn't cheat too often, but I mean, ultimately he's a skilled winger playing junior, so it's been known to happen from time to time. I'm not concerned about it here. That's something that can be cleaned up, and it's pretty common thing for these younger wingers. I really do like his overall effort level. I think he goes into the battle and he attacks the middle of the ice when he can. He's got a high motor and 75 PIMS. He's not afraid to muck it up here a little bit and play with some jam. Really strong in puck protection for an average, really for an average sized player. Very good balance on his skates. You don't see him get knocked down too often or too easily. He shields the puck well. He's willing to battle. He'll finish his hits. There's nothing soft about this guy at all. To me, that kind of indicates that he does kind of have a nice floor as a third line guy because of his work rate and his willingness to dig. And I do see some top six upside here because he does have quite a bit of substantial offensive ability here to go with a high motor and some balls to his game. His playmaking ability allows him to play with guys who are more skilled than himself. Michael Misa as a prime example, and I know you want to mention Chernyshov as well. That line's been dynamite. And Epperson, every time I watch him, he's making plays out there, and he like I said, he's able to play with guys who are more skilled than him and find success. He reads off his skill line mates really, really well. And it's hard to do. It's hard to play with really skilled players sometimes. Because of the fact that he's a re-entry here, I don't know that it's a realistic candidate to be a first rounder. He would be the first re-entry to be a first rounder in quite a few years. It's been some time since that happened. And you do have to acknowledge the fact that he does have an extra year of development on most of these guys. So he should look better than an equally skilled peer who is his first time through the draft. So as good as he looks, that is something that I try to keep in mind when I'm ranking him. That said, and despite that, as soon as it hits round two, I'd be really excited to take a swing on this guy. I do think there is a nice floor to go along with some moderate top six upside. Smart player that works hard and has a lot of puck skill and can play with better guys. There's a lot to like here. Boyce, I'll let you add your thoughts as the last couple seconds of this video finish up.
Yeah, so with Epperson, so speaking of skill level here, well, actually, we'll just talk about the actual body here first. So he's 6 feet tall, so he's not huge, but he's not small. I do think there's a little bit more room for growth in terms of his weight here, which should improve his strength. And as you already talked about with his skating, he's a very good shifty skater. He's very strong on his skates, and his pivoting and body control are actually excellent. Like this is a very high quality tool. Maybe it's not elite, but it might just be just under that. His agility skating is very good. So for smaller guys, actually, or smaller-ish. I mean, 6 feet's not
Average
small.
size.
Average size. Um, he's really good at keeping control of the puck using his body. Like he's really good at shielding the puck,
Yeah.
which is, again, very effective at this level. But in terms of even his age, he's a May 06, I believe. So, I mean, he's only 3 or 4 months older than some of these other guys that are in this draft. I mean, a lot of the top of the draft is late 06s. So it's not
Yep.
it's not an outrageous. Now, when you compare it to Murtagh, it is. Murtagh's a full year and a few months younger than him. So that's kind of what you have to take into account there. But in terms of Epperson, speaking about him here, I've also just seen, again, watch him a couple times, there has been improvement on the defensive end. I think again, I think he's, winning more pucks, specifically in the neutral zone. He's very good there.
Yeah, I don't
I
think he's
mean,
been bad there.
no, and it's getting better. And I mean, his back checking's good. I mean, he has some high effort plays that kind of Saginaw gives up a lot, I guess is what I would say. They give up some chances.
Oh, they like to run and gun.
Yeah, and he seems to be the guy that's always kind of back to kind of get the play. Again, if there's a breakaway, he's the one racing the guy and actually getting back and kind of hindering the play.
Oh, he has a high motor.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's good. Even on the PK, like there is some potential there for him on the PK. He's a good pressure guy because he's really shifty. So he can change directions really quickly, which hinders the other team. Like that is a problem.
Well, yeah, because you can break them down even if they throw a fake and try to
Mhm.
go the other way, he can catch up to them.
Yes. So I actually think there is some room for improvement in his defensive skill. I don't think he's a poor defender. I just think there's room to grow.
Yep.
So that's good. It does, from what you said, that actually, to me, as you said, he can play in maybe a lower lineup role. Like maybe that is a possibility. But a couple other things here, like his playmaking and just his offensive hockey sense are excellent.
Yeah.
These are, again, speaking of before Murtagh, like I have some trouble seeing the elite skill, or at least the high level skill that maybe translate the NHL. Like he can play at speed and he can play. He makes a lot of again, he can make the play slowed down, he can make the play sped up, he can make the play while he's moving, and he makes plays while he's falling down.
That's why I
Like
say,
I've
like, he manipulates the offensive zone well.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been really impressed with what I've seen. And because he's so shifty, he's actually able to create passing lanes maybe easier than other people are.
Yeah.
It's so easy for him to kind of just change a little bit direction. He can just get that extra inch on guys to find the passing lane where maybe some other guys can't. He could just beat D there because the D can't move quick enough. They can't match him on his shiftiness. They really can't.
And I do think it's noteworthy too that he's able to play with a guy like Misa, and you watch the game, and okay, like, let's be clear here. Michael Misa is the best player on, the best forward on that team. Um, but you watch the game and it's not like Misa's dragging Epperson around the ice and he's just getting points just because he plays with Misa. I think Epperson helps Misa be better. He takes some attention away from him. He opens him up, and that is a skill in of itself to be able to play with a guy like Misa.
Okay. So Epperson is not a passenger on this line.
No,
He
that's
is
what I'm saying.
also driving play with his
Yeah,
decision making and general offensive ability. I think that kind of gets misconstrued at time that he's on Misa's line all year. Like that's why he's getting points. And
no.
now he's with Chernishev. Like that's why he's getting points. I'd argue Epperson and me again.
He helps them be better.
Chernishev's having a great start to his career. It's unbelievable what he's doing. He's getting pucks on a platter from both those players.
Yes.
You see these highlights, he's literally just getting the breakaways because these guys are hitting him in stride. Like they're that good.
Yeah.
The other thing again, that I think is unique with, compared to Misa and Epperson, like there's very diverse offensive talent here. So again, they can play at speed. They can do things that other people can't do at speed, but they can also play slow down. They can jam up the front of the net. They go there. Like Epperson scores goals in front of the net. Like he can go to
Yeah.
dirty areas and score. He's not a perimeter player. He can be
No.
a perimeter player. He can literally be your half boards guy in the power
Well,
play.
and that's why I think there's a really nice floor and also some nice upside, because I've seen him play in the paint. I've seen him play behind the net. I've seen him play along the boards and have success. And I've seen him go and stick up for his teammates after the whistle and punch a guy in the mouth who's twice his size. And
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, again, and I will say this, he was good as like an under 17 player. Like he was good back then. He had
He
a
got
poor
pigeonholed
draft.
on the US team last year. He got
He had a poor
pigeonholed at the
draft year.
bottom. Yes, he didn't put up points because he was on a good US team. He was on the national program and he was a third or fourth line role, wasn't getting the power play minutes, wasn't getting to play with the better players. And just sometimes you can get in a groove, or you can get in a negative groove too, and you just got in a funk and didn't break out of it. And however, and we talked about this early in the year, there's two ways to handle that. It's right off into the sunset and whatever, or tell everyone, go fuck yourself. You could have had me in round 7 or round 6 or round 5, and now you're gonna have to pay a second rounder to get me because I'm here to show you. And he's doing that.
Okay, so I'm going to say something. Some people might get upset with me saying this. I watch London play a lot. He would be London's best offensive player. Yes, I'm going to say that. He would be their biggest offensive threat. That's how good he is. Yes, that's how good he is.
I don't.
And
disagree.
again, I'm not like that's kind of where I'm
we talked about him.
Like,
he's gonna make us look smart. We talked about him in our very first episode. And I was like, this guy didn't get drafted last year. I had never seen him before. I didn't even, honestly, I didn't even scout him last year because he was not really being super talked about. And I mostly just covered the first round last year. But yeah, I didn't really watch him much. And I watched him like early in the year when I came down to see it. I was like, holy jeez. I'm like, this guy's really good. I'm like, everyone done fucked up here passing on him.
So I think, again, we're just looking at the scouting service. He's a bit undervalued, obviously. We've said that already on a couple episodes. Bob McKenzie has him close to 80. Like, that's going to move up for sure. He's going to be in the second round. I don't think that's...
Yes.
Yeah, he has to be. I mean, Elite Prospects has him in the first round. Now, I think that might be a little bit advantageous. As you said before, that's very rare for a guy who's already been eligible to get drafted in the first round a year after he was missed.
If this was his first time through, and he
Yeah.
was producing how he is now, he'd be a slam dunk first rounder.
Yeah, he would have. I mean, Sportsnet has him 47. We have him a bit higher than that. I think we had him like 42. I think that's the right range, though. Like anywhere in the 40s, I'd be happy to take him.
30 to 45 for me is where.
Yeah, like I wouldn't have a problem taking him after the first round at all.
Pick 33 for me. I can justify it very easily in my mind.
I just think
there's not going to be many players at the start of round 2 that have his offensive upside as well as a high motor and good enough size.
Well, they don't have the offensive diversity that he has.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Cameron Schmidt has, again, so it's another guy in that area. We put him in the first round, but another guy in that area, he's small, but he has that one elite skill. He has the best shot in the draft per me. I think he has the best shot. But he doesn't have the diversity of offensive game maybe that he has or other parts of his game. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, to me, Epperson,
a bit younger, right?
Yeah, but to me, Epperson has multiple high-end skills that could translate. It's not just one.
I agree.
So, I think this is a savvy pick from a team too. They're gonna honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if they make the playoffs and actually make a run because no one can defend that line.
I wonder, they must not have known Chernyshov was coming over when they made all those trades.
Well, no, Kingston just gave them way too much. I don't know.
Still, though, you could repeat.
But that line, listen, again, that line can beat London. That's how good that line is.
That's the best line in the CHL?
By far. Epperson's like plus 40 this year, and they're a mid-level playoff team in the OHL. That line is literally, it's a one-line team.
Well, all three of them are making the NHL, I think.
Yeah.
And then you add Perek back there too to play with him, who's facilitates. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, they are. And again, like offensively, again, he's showing that he can play with highly talented players very easily. Like that's another skill set that can translate. He's going to play pro with highly talented players.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to play with them easily.
He's smart, man. He's really
Yeah.
smart. He's a really smart offensive player. He
So
really
anyway, I mean,
really reads guys well.
yeah. So when you're comparing him, like, so I think it's a good comparison, him and Murtagh, because Murtagh's younger, but they're similar sizes, and like
He's like a year and a half younger.
it's a year and 3 months, yeah. So like it's again,
Big difference.
it is a big difference. So it's like it's interesting to see how that's taken into account.
And Murtagh is on the team now that Epperson was on last year, and he's their
But
top
Murtagh's
scorer.
getting a lot of the ice time that Epperson didn't.
Big time.
So
You have to have an opportunity to show what you can do, which he's getting
again,
now.
but I'm seeing him as an 18-year-old outperform other guys who are 19 years old who are high draft picks.
And so that's what I've been trying to do too, is I've been like, I'm watching him this year, and in my mind, I'm mentally comparing him to guys who got drafted last year when I see them again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, how does he look compared to a guy that went in the first or second round last year who was his age? And how do you fit that in against guys a year younger that he's looks better than, but is quite a bit older than now? It's a bit of a juggling act there, but
it is. But like, so for instance, I watched my last viewing was against Windsor. Like Windsor is a big team. That's a team I'm very interested to see how these type of guys play, how they play against a team like that, because that's a pro size team, at least up front. He looked great. Like that whole line looked fantastic. So,
right. You ready?
Sure.
Kristian Epperson for Easton Cowan. Who says no?
Look, what are we talking about here?
Who says no? I think Saginaw says no.
I think Kristian Epperson is a better offensive creator than him. I think Cowan, when he's playing well, is a better all-around player, like 200-foot player.
He's changed his game the last year or so. He got away from what made him.
He hasn't been right since he got hammered against Oshawa. I forget the guy who hit him, but he hasn't been right since then.
I think that's
He's
why
been playing better lately, though. I've liked what I've seen the last couple of times I saw him. It's point streak's over. Point streak's over.
Is he back to playing hard and grinding, or is he
still kind of playing a bit greasy? Like that's what you want from him. But if we're talking about ozone manipulation and offensive ability, I think Epperson, as I said, I think Epperson would be London's best offensive player. Like he would be on the half boards on their power play. That would be where he would be.
So is it advantageous for elite prospects to have him in the first, or are they onto something?
I don't think they're wrong. I'm not sure an NHL team's going to do that. I think he could be picked at 33. So they're 6 spots off. He's really good. Like he's really good.
The puck bunker, big Kristian Epperson guys, apparently.
Well, I mean, again, we kind of went through the
We've been talking about him, right?
You saw him live, didn't even know who he was. Like, oh, this guy looks great.
Okay, so
we've watched on video a couple times, and he's just like he's still checking out.
Here's what I remember about that viewing. I went to see Misa primarily, Bruce Devich, right? And a couple other guys on London, Aerosmith, Glavin was on Saginaw, had these guys circled as the draft eligibles, right? Okay, going in. And this is what I liked about Epperson. One first, second, third shift in, I'm like, I've noticed him multiple times where I'm just like, who's 86? Who is this kid? And I look and I'm like, my first thought, I looked at him. I'm like, oh, new guy they got this year. I'm like, figured he's import, whatever. I'm like, okay, who drafted him? My first thought is that he's already drafted. Who has him? I'm like, no one drafted this guy. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm insane. First game, whatever. First viewing of the year, I got to warm up my scouting brain a little bit. I'm like, he's undrafted. So I watched first period, second period. I'm like, okay, fuck. I'm like, this kid's fucking good. I'm like, where did he play? Had hardly any points last year, but had tons of points in all his other years. Like, just had a down year. Looks like it, but someone's gonna reap the benefits of that, because I don't know. He stood, and that, like, he stood out without me having to look for him, is the point I was trying to get to before I forgot what I was talking about, kind of. Sometimes you have to watch guys and look for guys and like, okay, I'm here to watch this guy. Let's see how he plays. But other times the guy just jumps off the page and you're just like, oh, okay, well, you're out there doing things. And I didn't even come here to watch it, and I'm leaving talking about you. And really like that when that happens. Doesn't happen often, but you really like when it does.
I think he's getting better. Like, that's the other thing. Like, you're seeing the improvement. Like, he's improving as the year's going on.
Yeah. His confidence is very high right now. Rightfully so.
So we're high. Yeah, we're high on him. I've every time I've watched him, I've come away even more impressed by him. And that includes live and on video. It just checks out each time. The numbers check out. I mean, he's a dominant OHL player.
Yeah.
And I think he would be a dominant player even not playing with Misa. So
there you have it. Kristian Epperson, someone we obviously both like quite a bit. We got a couple defensemen that we'll move on to now. Boyce, do you want to kick it off with Sascha Boumedienne?
Sure. Just a second here. Okay. So Sascha Boumedienne, he plays for Boston University, so he's in the NCAA. And he's a January 2007 birthday. So again, rookie in the NCAA, playing pretty well actually. 6'2", 285 pounds. So decent size for defense or NHL defenseman. Kind of about average, I would say. A little maybe, right around average, I would say. Shoots left-handed, so it is noteworthy. As of this year, he has 32 games played with Boston University, has 2 goals, 7 assists, and 9 points. It's +6 and has 29 penalty minutes. So he's playing a regular shift with Boston University. Again, that's a really good program, really good development program for them. So, I mean, we've had him ranked in our first round in our recent top 50. We did rank him kind of the late 20s. It's kind of where he is on a lot of lists. In terms of a prospect itself, he's kind of an unexciting prospect because he kind of projects to be maybe a guy who's going to play, a decent defender. It's a guy who's going to play in your organization. He doesn't really project to be a stud, but he just projects to be a pretty good depth guy in your organization. Probably play in the thought process play 4, 5, 6 on your decor, that type of player. So in terms of the ability, I like his physicality. I think he's fairly strong. I think that's actually improving through the viewings we've had. He's winning more physical battles now, and he uses physicality to win pucks. I mean, he'll use his body, throw hits, or just rub guys out and win pucks that way. But he's very good with that. Defensively, he's quite he's solid defensively, I guess. He's pretty good gap control. I mean, I think there's good strength there, especially with in-zone defending. He can win battles that way. A couple things, though, that I'm a little bit hesitant on with him. I don't think his skating is great, and I think it gets him in trouble. Sometimes he gets burned more often than he should. Now, again, maybe it's because he's playing the NCAA and it's older guys. But I would like to see that improve, and I just haven't totally yet. Each viewing I've seen, it's kind of happened. That's becoming kind of a pattern instead of being alleviated. So I got to keep my eye on that with him. But mostly defense, I think he makes good step-up decisions at the blue lines. I think again, I like the process of what he's doing. I just think if his skating maybe improves a little bit, that would make his defensive game even better. So again, speaking of his skating, I don't think his straight forward and backwards are bad. I think they're fine. I just don't think he has a very powerful stride yet. It almost like he isn't getting the most out of his legs that he should. That might suggest that he has some growth to make, or a growth, in strength that he kind of needs, which can happen. Again, he's he can get bigger, so that might be something to look at. That might be where the potential is in the player, that you just find that his skating stride will get a little more powerful the older he gets. And I am worried a little bit about his pivoting and agility. As I said before, he does kind of get burned specifically to his left. Um, that's something I want to see improved. And it's going to have to improve if he's going to play in the NHL. That's what we're going to need. In terms of offensive ability, shooting, he actually has shown that he can beat goalies off the rush. He's had a couple opportunities where he scored that way. So it wasn't actually bad that way. He showed some ability to walk the line and actually find a good shooting lanes. So I do wonder if maybe there's a little bit more offensive ability here than I've given him credit for. And again, it's maybe something that might improve a little bit. I do find his puck handling a little choppy, though. I mean, the puck's not a grenade, but it's not fluid yet. And I would like to see him maybe a little bit more confidence with the puck. Um, he does try to do a little bit too much at times. Maybe he has a little bit too much confidence that he can make guys miss, and it causes turnovers for him. Again, he's exploring his skill set, so take that for what you will. I don't think in the NHL he's going to be, that's the type of thing he'll be doing. I think he'll be a very simple type defender, simple type player, just chip it out, simple passes, not trying to make guys miss. So I'm not sure that ability, again, I don't think he has that ability. I think, maybe he'll learn to not do that. I mean, passing wise, he makes simple passes. I don't really see the high offensive upside there where he makes a ton of offensive type passes. And even if his passing, he kind of puts teammates in disadvantaged situations. He doesn't really hit guys in the tape all the time. So, it kind of makes them struggle to receive the puck. So that's kind of, again, I just don't know how much of an offensive player they're going to have here. I mean, in terms of effort level, I thought he skated hard in battles and rushes. The only thing I wanted to, again, he hits guys. The only thing I just wanted to say is sometimes when his teammates have the pucks, he can kind of get caught standing still. I've seen that happen a couple times with him. And then if they turn it over or something happens, he's caught flat-footed. So you'd like to see him kind of, again, just not standing around. You'd like to kind of just see that maybe improve a little bit as well. But overall, I mean, it's tough because I think, like at 25, I just think there's a few better guys than him that where he's ranked. I do think he's probably a late first, early second. I think I just might air them more. He's an early second to me. I just don't. He's a left-hand shot. He's average size. I don't see a ton of offensive ability here, and I have trouble with his. I'm worried about his pivoting and his skating. Maybe some others aren't as worried. Now, again, to counter that, he's young. He's playing in the NCAA. He'll get better. There's room to grow here too. And especially if his skating gets better, I think that would only improve his defensive game because a lot of the things I'm worried about, I think, are skating related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fair. Now, like I watch a game in a couple instances, like I have in my notes here, like in one of the reports I did on him, he beat Teddy Stiga in a foot race to a loose puck, right?
Yeah.
And so his top speed, I think, is fine. And I think that you're right in saying that we need to keep in mind that he is playing in the NCAA. This is faster than junior hockey. The players are older, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, they're smarter, they're more developed, and probably generally better coached too. So for when I watch him, and I'm like, you're a freshman defenseman out there playing a regular shift, and you like, are you pushing the pace? Are you the difference maker in the game? No. But guess what? You're not getting burnt. And that is a big compliment for a really young defenseman against guys who have primarily all been drafted or are very highly skilled players who are probably just small and didn't get drafted. And so for him to go out there and simply looks like he fits in, I think is a huge, huge, huge compliment to his game where, yes, it does give you some pause for concern because are we looking at probably pretty limited offensive upside? Yeah, we are. But we're also talking about a pick in the mid-20s or early 30s. Well, guess what? That's just kind of what you get. And if you can find a defenseman in that range that you think can play 3, 4, 5, 600 games and be a regular contributor night in, night out, that like historically in any draft, that's actually a really good pick there. If you can get a 500 game player at pick 25, guess what? As far as drafting goes, that's a highly, highly, highly successful pick. Is it exciting? No.
No.
Is it a little bit boring? Yeah. Is he going to put 50 points up for you? No. But you know what? There is value in a guy that can come in and play. And you have a little bit of, I think you have a pretty high floor with this player. And I get, there are some areas of concern in his game. The quickness at times, but again, he's young in that league. I think his puck skills are actually good when he keeps them simple, like you said, and maybe end up being a pretty effective first pass guy, or a D-to-D pass guy, or you're a really good puck retrieval guy, and you just move it. But like, those guys have value, even though they're not sexy picks, and we're not looking at a guy that's some home run swing, but there's a certain point that you get to where it's like, okay, if you have a very, very high confidence in his ability to make the league, it becomes a pretty appealing pick as a defenseman there.
So I'll put it to you this way: if his skating improves a little bit, like, he's definitely going to be an NHL player. If it improves a lot, he can be a very good NHL player. And so, because I do think
skating.
Well, it's the like the pivoting and the turning and the change of direction as a defenseman, like, that is a big deal. Like, we've talked about guys like Simon Wang, right? Like, the reason that we like him so much is because his change of direction skill is so elite. Like, or his pivoting skill is so elite. Like, he can make up ground just crossing over on guys. He's losing ground doing that. So that's the issue I have. Can it improve? Absolutely. It can improve. He's going to get bigger. That'll help. He's obviously going to work on his skating. I mean, it just, again, depends on what type of flaws you think are workable. So do I think skating can improve? Yes. Does it always improve? No. But do I think it can? Yes. Like, it's definitely plausible. And if it improves a lot, like, he can be he could be a 600 game player. Absolutely. But there's also a world where he's like a depth guy and he's like 200 game guy. Like, there is a world with that.
Well, there's going to be, at this point in the draft, no one picked after the top 20 probably is really guaranteed to play in the league. That's just what NHL draft is. One thing with him, though, I want to give him credit for. I have seen some pretty vast improvement with him at this point in the year versus the start of the year. I thought at the start of the year he was very hesitant. I thought he didn't make very good decisions under pressure. I thought even when he did have time to make a decision, he had a tough time going through his reads and handling the pace of play. And I didn't see those things to nearly the same extent when I watched him in January and again in February. He looked a lot more comfortable, I think, with the pace of play, and he went through his reads a lot quicker, and he made quicker decisions, and he was able to make the right decision under pressure a lot more consistently. The last couple times I watched him than the first few games when I watched him earlier in the year. So I think that was something that I noticed that gave me a lot of confidence that he is progressing and he is working on the things that we saw.
He's more confident physically too. Like, he's much more willing to engage than he was earlier in the year. I think that's showing. Like, he is improving. Like, he's definitely improving. It's just a team's going to have to, again, with him, they're going to have to gauge what's the high upside of this player, what's the floor of this player, what type of draft strategy they have. Like, are they willing to take kind of the higher floor guy? And maybe there's some room for growth here, but not an offensive role, but there's room to maybe be a middle pair defenseman. Like, yeah. Like, I think that's what you're looking for. Like, you're looking at a guy who could be a high-end middle pair. I think it's like maybe your high upside here.
Yeah, and I think he probably suits a team better that probably already has their high-end foundational pieces and is looking for guys who can come in probably 3 years and help their existing core.
And build depth too, build organizational depth.
Exactly. And I don't think this is a guy that maybe if you're early in the cycle of building your team, maybe like a Chicago or San Jose, I don't know that that's maybe the guy that you use. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
maybe go for a guy with a little more high end upside there, because at that point you're just looking for as much talent in your organization as you can. But a team that's kind of already in their window or just entering their window, or a younger playoff team like that, might be a really good fit for a team like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like a younger playoff team, I think makes sense because then it's, you're going
Yeah,
to want to be 7 or 8 deep on D. He's playing college, so you can probably get him up maybe after another year into your organization if you want to.
yeah.
And he'll be more developed at that regard, or at least closer to the NHL, you'd think. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for a team like that. Yes.
Um, let's move on. We got one more guy to present for this episode, and that's Max Psenicka. He's a 6'4", 178-pound right-handed defenseman for the Portland Winterhawks in the WHL. Only played 12 games with them. He's got 3 assists and 4 PIMs. The stats don't jump off the page, obviously. He did start the year at home in Czechia. He played 20 games at the U20 level, scored 3 goals and 11 points, so some respectable offensive totals there. He got 16 games at their pro level, and he had 2 goals there as well. Now, this is a player who is extremely raw, like very, very raw. What I personally feel is one of the more intriguing guys in this draft, with a pile of upside here. His toolbox is extremely appealing, despite some pretty clear flaws in his game that he has right now that we'll touch on in a little bit. Um, the tools are really, really, you get excited about it. I think his skating is already pretty good, but I see a lot of potential for this to become a really big asset for him. It's okay right now; it doesn't hurt him, but I do see in his mechanics and his stride and his top speed, I see a lot of potential for his skating to become a very, very, very valuable part of his game. He's very tall. He's very skinny, like rail thin. And with added strength, I'm really excited to see how that turns out, because when he does get up to top speed, you really like his stride, and he can cover a lot of ground quickly. It's quite impressive when he is able to reach his top speed. Now, the quickness right now is where the issues are for me. His quickness needs to come a little bit. But again, like I said, he's rail thin, and with some added strength, I really don't see this being a long-term issue for him. And I do actually think that he could turn it into a strength of his game. Now, his offensive game, it's not going to turn heads. His shot is very average, and the puck game can definitely use some refinement at times. There's times where he looks very, very good with the puck on his stick, and he can jump into the rush and make some plays. But there are examples, and you'll see them in this video. There's some examples here of him simply misplaying the puck, or overplaying it, or overskating it, and making very what I would say would be probably frustrating errors for the coaching staff. Now, when he keeps it simple, I think there's a mold for a very effective puck game here, in the sense of get it and move it up ice type of player, good retrievals, good first pass, keep it simple and get the puck to the forwards. And I think there is a model here for that, for him to really thrive in that type of role. I do like his passing ability for the most part. But again, he's much more effective when he keeps those passes simple. When he tries to do a little too much, or get a little too creative with it, that's when he can be prone to some mistakes. His reads in the offensive zone are getting better than when he first came over to Portland. He's making now, I would say, mostly good decisions on his pinches. Now, I would like him to be a little bit more assertive and a little more confident when he does pinch. He can sometimes hesitate with his read, and kind of stutter step before he really commits to the pinch, which sometimes can hurt him, with guys being able to get around him and go the other way. If you're going to do it, you got to commit. But again, that's something that's coachable, and it's something that he is. I've already seen some improvement in this area from him just throughout the few games that he's played. Defensively, the reads are fine, I think, for the most part. There's one example in here of him getting crossed up and lost trying to switch off his man off a break-in, but typically he's fine there for the most part. I didn't note that as a huge major issue in my opinion. Good motor, good effort level. He's very willing to play hard. I've got zero issues with his work ethic whatsoever. It's not the greatest motor in the draft class, but it checked the box of what I was looking to see from him in that sense. He plays pretty strong for a skinny kid in the dirty areas, like 6'4", 175. Like that's really thin. And he is relatively strong in the dirty areas. He wins more battles than he loses. And when the chance comes up to make a hit, he will take advantage of it and lay the body. Now, I see a lot of runway here with this player. Now, it might be a longer runway in terms of development time, but I do see a lot of runway with this player. There are some warts, but the warts that he has are kind of like they're almost so obvious that they're coachable. So like I'm less worried about them. I think a lot of it is adjustment to the North American game. And again, there's been some pretty substantial improvement just in the dozen games he's played. But the potential of him at his size, say he gets up to 215, 220, that could be a really, really exciting player. I do like his upside as a shutdown defender and almost perhaps as a secondary puck mover or a quick outlet type of guy. When he's pressured, he tends to defer to the safe play, which, as a default mode, I'm more than okay with. And he can sometimes hesitate when he has multiple options. So improvement there in terms of going through his reads and just a little bit quicker decision-making would be good. I think that would go a long way for him. But he doesn't panic when guys are coming at him, which you do like to see. He's willing to hang in there until he can make a play. I'm not sure that he's refined enough here to be a realistic guy to be in the conversation for the end of round one. He's very raw, like I said, and he's not playing every night and he's not getting tons of minutes. So I don't know if that's super realistic, at least at this point in the season. We'll see when playoffs come along. Maybe he turns into more of a beast and then you have that conversation. But right now, I absolutely love this guy in round two, much like Kristian Epperson. Anytime after the first round, I've got a lot of time for a team to justify that pick. And that's a guy that you're probably pretty excited about getting in the second round, even though he might be more than a couple of years away here from making an NHL team. I think if he hits the ceiling is really good.
Yeah. So I like this player strictly because he's 6'4", has about 40 pounds of growth, maybe. Already shows some decent straightforward skating. Now, like Boumedienne, I find his agility to kind of be a bit of the issue here. But I can see that again. I can actually see more area of improvement there for him than maybe Boumedienne, just because again he's growing into his size still. He still looks a little bit uncoordinated.
Yeah.
So I could see, this improving a lot. This is a much higher ceiling player to me than Boumedienne.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and I even think the floor actually is somewhat comparable. Just because of how big he is. Again, 6'4" right hand shot, very much in demand. Teams draft this literally for the asset. If you listen right now, the Leafs are kind of floating Ben Danford around just in trades right now because teams are interested in right hand shot deep. Nonetheless, in terms of his defensive zone, I actually like him in the D zone. He's a good in zone defender. In terms, he can end cycles with his body, with his stick. He blocks shots. Really good at opening lanes for the goalie to see the puck. That was something that was kind of underrated that I saw. That he was definitely moving guys out of the way that the goalie could see the puck and make an easy save. Really liked him there. The only issue was, again, he wasn't a bad rush defender. He's just a bit slow. Like he's just, again, his pivoting, he's just a little bit slow. But at the last game I watched, he blocked 5 shots.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and if he grows into his size and gets bigger, he's going to be physically imposing. He's got a very large stick. They're not going to be able to get around him. I think he can handle the puck okay. I don't think it's bad. I don't think he's going to really make guys miss, but I mean, he can handle a pass. He can chip it out. He can, make the pass back. Like it's fine that way. Do I think he's going to, score a bunch of goals? No. But I see a canvas here of an NHL player that could be quite good. I mean, and again, we're speaking of some guys higher up in the draft. Like now, again, a lot of these guys in the high end of the draft, these right shot D, like a guy like Blake Fiddler, again, not really an offensive guy. It's just I think he's a really good skater. So if he improves his skating, like this is a high end asset, a high end player for any NHL team. So I like him. I'm not sure if again he doesn't go ahead of Boumedienne. I'm really not because the potential here is higher.
I agree, but I do think that if Boumedienne has less to improve to ensure an NHL roster spot. He has less holes in his game as it stands today, which
Yeah.
might make the difference. Now, I do agree with you. Psenicka has more upside, but it's going to be a longer process with him. It's
Bigger
going to take
guy.
him, yes, and it's going to take him longer to fill out, and I think it's going to take him maybe longer to reach his full potential. But I do think the full potential, if everything hits, is greater than Boumedienne. But my thing with Boumedienne is I don't know, like if there's something that will prevent him from having an opportunity to play games in the league, where if Psenicka doesn't show some big improvement in a couple areas, there is.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But I like Psenicka, and I personally am a believer in him. I really like the player. But when you're talking about, again, I've said this before, I think the draft strategy and mentality changes a little bit from round 1 to round 2. I think you're going to see a little more risk averse pick in the first round, and teams are more happy to swing for upside as soon as you're outside of the first round. But you see a lot of times, even in post draft interviews, talking to GM and stuff, it's like, well, we wanted to get a guy that we knew would be able to come into our organization and help us win games in a few years. Oh, you took this pick like late in the first, like not really a high upside guy, but seemed more as a safe pick. It's like, yeah, well, we wanted to make sure we got a guy who's going to play. And you hear that time and time again at the end of the first round. So I don't know if that doesn't play into things, but I do agree with your take that Psenicka has the higher ceiling.
I'm just going to say this. I wouldn't be shocked if he went into the first round because he's a right hand shot and he has a higher upside than the guys, in the second round right hand shot guys.
But there are holes. There are bigger
There
holes
are
there.
holes, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked.
No, I wouldn't either. And I would honestly, I would like the balls of someone who had the confidence to take him in the first round. But it would be someone who would have to be confident in calling their shot on him at that point, because that would be seen as high risk, high reward type pick.
Yeah. Like I see more potential here than like Bedkowski. I see more potential here than Amico even. Like
Certainly.
it's
I
yeah,
100% agree.
yeah. So if that's the case, he's in our board, I think he's the first right hand shot after round 2 starts. I mean, there's a world he's a first round pick. Absolutely. But also
There is,
yeah,
but he would have to, like, he's taken a step already. He would have to take another big step in terms of his performance and the end of the year in the playoffs. But I agree. If we see that continued improvement, and these improvements happen really quickly for him, which is not unheard of for a guy between the first and second half of his season in his draft year. If you see another big step, I'm more than open to that conversation.
yeah. So I'm gonna say this on a lot of lists. I don't think a lot of people have had him ranked just because they haven't really seen him up until
Yeah,
recently. Bob McKenzie had him 55. I mean, I think we had him about 10 slots higher than that. So again, definitely noteworthy that teams have him in the second round. And that's at the time basically without much WHL viewings of him, or without many.
yeah.
So I could see him definitely moving up from that. So
And he looked a lot better in the dub than he did in Czech.
yeah. So
So that,
I
and
mean,
again, that's
yeah, like I think you're going to see him on a lot of boards here moving up.
I agree. I agree
Yeah,
completely. It's someone that I'm personally a big fan of, and I really like. I really like. I really like the toolbox here with this player.
the canvas of a guy here. Like there's a canvas
Yeah,
of a good guy here.
exactly. I think that's a good place to wrap it up today. It was nice to get back to our in-depth prospect features after basically having the last 3 weeks of rankings and Four Nations type stuff. So nice to get back to this. There's a few players that some of our viewers and commenters have asked us about. So we're going to try and work a couple of those guys into some upcoming features. But look for more of this stuff here as we really try to cover a lot of the guys that we ranked in our top 50 that we haven't really touched in depth on yet. So look for that coming up. We'll hopefully do another one of these in the next few days as well. Boyce, thank you for your time. I know you got a jet. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We will see you guys next episode.
See you later.